message for a few weeks now. And the camera there is for my mom. So hi, Mom. And anyways, we'll move on. And she'd be proud. She'll be proud of her. This morning we're going to look at a topic that we've never discussed here at the church. And it's probably one that many of you have never even given a second thought to. But the title of this morning's message is, Would Jesus Tweet? And many of you don't even know what tweeting is, other than the bird. But I'll explain this to you. But we're going to look at social media this morning. Many of you don't know what social media is either, so I'll help you with that. And its effects on how we form our current relationships. Some of you have already made and broken your New Year's resolutions. How many of you have done that so far? A few honest people. Thank you, Chris. All right. How many of you made New Year's resolutions, though, this year? That you want to change something for the 2011? Anyone made resolutions this year? No. You all want to stay the same. Excellent. But in order for us to make New Year's resolutions, my wife and I were talking on our drive home from Charlottetown yesterday. In order to make resolutions or to make plans for next year, or this year we're in now, to be better, we need to look at past reflections, or past year's reflections. Look at what was it about last year that was praiseworthy, that was honorable to God, that we are celebrating, and what is it about last year that was dishonoring to God or difficult in our life that we'd like to change this year. And so I'm not sure what those are for you. This year I haven't made any New Year's resolutions, but I have had plenty of time over the last few days to make some past year's reflections. Many of you, if you have grandkids, or if you have kids my age, or if you are probably under the bracket of 60 years old, will be familiar with many of the avenues we use today that we refer to as social media. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all those different things. So I want to just give you a brief definition. And Jim, if you just fly with me as we go along here, you can go to put up the definition for us there. But social media is a type of online media that expedites or hurries up conversation as opposed to traditional media that you folks 60 or older would be more used to reading, would be the newspaper. That is not an example of social media. It is a way that information is delivered to us. People write the columns and we read it. But nowadays, the way information is passed by is through what we call now social media. It's done through a number of conversations. So the traditional media, which delivers content but doesn't allow readers or viewers or listeners to participate in the creation or development of the content. The only way that past generations have been able to contribute to what they read in the paper, what they see in the news, would be to write the letter to the editor. And then you let the editor know your displeasure with a column they've published. Or you let them know about the praise of someone in the letter to the editor. So that is a brief definition of social media. We're going to look at a few different examples of social media this morning. And then I will tie it all together. I know some of you are already saying, I don't care about this internet business. And I know you don't care. And that's part of our process, is just to help teach and learn, because my role as youth pastor is to find ways to communicate through these means to meet the needs of our teenagers. However, later on you'll discover that these methods do not accurately tell the tale of how these teens are really doing. So let's go to the next slide there, Jim, for me. And just click along, everything's on the click. So this is the very first social media site, really, other than stuff that was from the 80s, really before internet and chat rooms became popular. LinkedIn's sole purpose was for business connections. Through LinkedIn, you can have conversations with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Its main purpose is to create a personal profile so that people can know who you are as the manager or owner of a company. And then if they are interested in hiring you for a service that you offer, or potentially hiring you as an employee, many people have LinkedIn profiles. I have a LinkedIn profile, but obviously it's not for business use. It's really just so people that I know can find me. And we'll talk a little bit later about the narcissistic way that those of us who use social media, have a really high view of ourselves. And some of us need to be taken down. We'll talk about that a little later too. Let's go to the next one there, Jim. This is that's an example. I don't know how well you can see, but I'll give you a screenshot of each of the media as well. This is an example of LinkedIn, what it looks like. The next one is MySpace. And MySpace, you remember, if you're a parent or a grandparent, do you remember that when MySpace first came out, there was all kinds of cautions. Make sure that you watched your kid's profile, and make sure you had your own MySpace so you can monitor your kids or grandkids. MySpace, sole purpose, you can go to the example of the slide there, Jim, was basically you post a picture of yourself, and you'd have online friends, people would come and find you, and you just let everyone know what all your interests are. So if you like a certain type of music, or a certain band, bands really use MySpace these days to communicate their music to the mass market, because it's free. It doesn't cost any money, so it's easy promotion. And so MySpace was really the first one that kind of got things going. And we're going to move to the next example here, and Facebook. Now, how many of you have, I want you to be honest, how many of you have Facebook profiles in here? If you have a Facebook account, put your hand up. All right, yeah, I'd like to acknowledge that even Grampy stares. But that's because he keeps tabs on me. But Facebook basically started as a networking site at Harvard University, so that the students within Harvard could communicate with one another, because at such a large university it was almost impossible to kind of find out what was happening across campus. So it started at Harvard and quickly began to expand, and now there's over 500 million people that have Facebook accounts. So if Facebook were a country, it would be the third largest country in the world because of the amount of users. This is an example of the modern Facebook profile. I have no idea who this guy is. I got his Facebook profile from Google, but this is what you basically put your face on there for everyone to see again, and people write stuff on your wall. So it's almost like when you used to take your yearbooks around at the end of the school year and got people to write stuff down for you. You can also know who people are married to, who their friends are, photographs of their recent events, etc., etc. Many of you are familiar with Facebook, so we won't belabor any more time with Facebook. Let's go next one there, Jim, for me. All right, Twitter. This is the one that you see. I know those of you who watch CNN faithfully, you know that Nancy Grace and Wolf Blitzer and Anderson Cooper and all those guys all have Twitter accounts. And there is a scripture somewhere in the Psalms. It's a King James version. And I wish I would have got it, but the word Twitter, or twittering, is used in the Bible. So I encourage you to go home and Google where Twitter is used in the Bible. It's basically, the writer says something and it says, and so I Twitter. And basically, he's not talking about Twitter, but anyways. Twitter was founded in 2006, and its sole purpose is to let people know what's happening in your life. It's pretty shallow, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And if you are here this morning and you have your cell phone with you, or your BlackBerry or iPhone, I have mine in my pocket. It's on silent, so it won't ring. But I have mine, and I encourage you this morning to tweet if you want. Anything that I say that's worthy of tweeting. And there's probably not a whole lot of that, so you won't be keeping your phone. Okay? But Twitter, that's basically, the purpose is to communicate with others mass market. So here's an example. Here's my Twitter page. So you can put a custom picture of yourself on there. It's going to be Fundy Park on the swings. And then you just follow people. People, your friends. I follow, we got Jay Cambers over there. We got Mace555 over there. We got Joel Abazu. I'm Krauss Daddy. This is Matt Fugger over here. This is Krauss Mama. We all have Twitter accounts. And so it basically is a way to communicate with folks, letting them know what you're currently doing. And businesses now are using Twitter for the purpose of promotion. Again, it's a free avenue. So you basically put something on there and say, well, check out our new product, or Avon or Tupperware, use it as well. So I don't think Michelle has a Twitter account though, but she could put a link to hers and it would link them to their website. It's a free way, and businesses are using Twitter like crazy. And so you'll see Twitter being used all over on television, in the newspapers, etc. We got one more we want to show you. And this is YouTube. How many of you have ever gone on YouTube? Put your hand up. I think most of you have received an email, if you have email, and you viewed something on YouTube. Now, there's this guy that is like the most famous, Jim. We're going to show that clip here, if that's right with you. There's this guy, his name is Keenan Cahill. Anyone ever heard of Keenan Cahill? Some people have. Well, you guys are going to be exposed to him, and then I want to show you this brief video clip, and then we'll talk about it. This is Keenan. Wait and see if the video is. I hope it works. If it doesn't, we can move on. But anyways, at least his picture's there. Any luck, Jim? All right. Well, if you get it going, Jim, just put it up in the background because it'll be worth the laughs. Okay. Let's go to the next slide, though, if you can, Jim, for me. We're going to highlight some of the, I guess, pitfalls and positive sides of social media. This guy here is Dave Days. I was hoping that some of our teens would be here, like Annie and Sarah and Cassidy, because they follow Dave Days. Dave Days is a guy who started on YouTube years ago, putting songs of himself up there, cover songs or songs that he had written, and basically had so many views of his channel, YouTube channel, that he became what we would call a YouTube celebrity. A guy who makes money and earns a living, basically, by putting YouTube videos up. That's his job. So Dave, if you notice, he's had over 22 million views of his channel alone. That just means they go to youtube.com/DaveDays. But 240 million times his videos have been viewed on YouTube. And let's go to the next one there, Jim, for me, if you can. Philip DeFranco. I don't know if any of you follow him. Phil is basically the modern day Lloyd Robertson for us here in Canada, or a guy that, let's say, I don't want to compare him to Larry King, but Phil basically gives the news, modern day headlines, to people like me. And he does it in 5-minute video clips. And Phil has 56 million views of his channel and almost 500 million views of his videos alone. And and I know that those numbers are staggering. They seem really high, but you have no idea how many views that is. 500 million, which means that people are spending 500 million times 5 minutes at a time. I don't know how many hours in total that is. But it's a lot of wasted time. However, some of the stuff he has to say is noteworthy. Let's go to the next one here. Shay Carl. This guy here, I'm growing my beard to look like Shay Carl. Not really, but when someone once told me I look a little bit like Shay Carl. He basically started his YouTube channel by filming what he did every day, and filming what his kids did every day, and he would post it online. Shay Carl is obviously not nearly as popular as far as views goes, with only 69 million views, as opposed to 500 million with Philip DeFranco. But Shay Carl communicates to a completely different market. He communicates to parents, even though some of his antics are right off the wall. But Shay Carl's sole purpose was to let everyone know what he's doing and what his family's doing. So you'll notice here this little white video camera down here. On Boxing Day, the 27th of December, myself, Marcus, Lee Clark, and my brother-in-law got in line at 1:30 in the morning at Old Navy. And Old Navy was giving away those cameras with the $25 purchase. So Rianne had received a gift card, and so I stood in line. 1:30. At 4 o'clock, I was the third person in line. And so all four of us, Marcus, myself, Lee, and Ryan, all got flip video cameras. And then we went to McDonald's and had a healthy breakfast together. And then immediately, as soon as I got home, it was 5:30 in the morning, and I woke Rianne out of her sleep. And I'm like, Rianne, you have to check out this camera. You have no idea what this is going to do. So the first day we had the camera, we took 20 videos of just things that Abby would do, and stuff that Abby would say, and stuff that I would do. And Rianne took me on a tour of the kitchen and her new organization of all the new, where we put hot chocolate and coffee and oatmeal and tea, and just a bunch of wasted video. And that's what YouTube is. It's just a bunch of wasted video. But it's part of our lives. That's the part of the way that people my age communicate. And so Shay Carl is a great example of how someone communicates things about their family. And fourthly, is this guy, Keenan Cahill. I wish this video would work. I really do. It's Justin Bieber, and if you guys know Justin Bieber, he's a Canadian guy from Ontario. But Keenan, all he does is sit in front of his camera and he lip syncs to songs. He just plays them on his radio or stereo and lip syncs to them. He's got a video by a song called Teenage Dream by Katy Perry, and it has 25 million views in the last few months. This guy is taking over the internet, Keenan Cahill is. And so if this video, if you don't know, or the video doesn't work, then go to youtube.com/Keenan Cahill, and you will see the brilliance